My
Oh,
friend of me.
hi. How's it going?
Well, uh, did we make a wager on the Lions game for prize money?
There was no
I
like
had a, I had a high level of confidence.
there was no monetary like you know and not even like a gifting kind of thing because I don't think we just even got there. It was more of a bragging rights.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, up until halftime, I was bragging.
yeah.
Damn it. Damn. So sad. Well, it is what it is.
Well, and then with the best part was like then like as the game progressed, and even as the game was progressing, I was like, if the Niners, do in fact do this comeback, I might have the score exactly right.
Oh, did we do scores? I don't remember what I said.
I'm pretty sure we did scores.
What was your score?
I think I had 27-24. I predicted a close one. So
Yeah. I was actually at my brother-in-law's house. Joe might be watching, listening. And he actually asked he's been predicting the scores for every playoff game of the Lions playoff games and posting on Facebook, but since we were there, we went down there, watched the game. He asked my opinion. I I think I said with him, I think I said 21-14. And he thought it was going to be a shootout. And so then he picked up like a 35-34 or something like that, or And anyway, so and then the first again, the first half, and then the second half, and then some are moving on, some are not.
That's why you got to play the game. That's why they play the game. So
yeah, well, good go well, for your sake, go Niners.
Thank you.
It was one hell of a show from that Mr. Irrelevant. Talk about grit. The Lions have been talking about grit, all playoffs. But man, that guy,
yeah,
he could have literally, what are the phrases? Just buried his head in the sand and pretended, he gave it a shot. But man, he had more rushing yards than McCaffrey.
I mean, when he started scrambling, and I was just like, this kid is just he's decided, he's not done.
Yeah.
He's going to give everything he's got. I mean, the game, both sides. It wasn't, I think that's what I texted you, hell of a game. And I totally enjoyed it. It was fantastic. So not just for the result. I mean, it was a good game. So.
Right. Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. It's funny how, we're still friends.
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah, we're still friends.
Yeah. Best friends. But no, it's okay. It's okay.
So you can only have one winner. Oh my gosh. I have to say something. I gotta speak.
It's those darn pretzels. It's the pretzels.
It's the
Yep, there. See? Yep. Oh.
Is it a first for the podcast?
That is a first. That is an absolute first for the podcast.
I normally keep it together. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I've been chomping on pretzels. I love pretzels. Pretzel sticks in particular, but maybe Rolled Gold sponsorship in the works.
Oh, that's good.
Coffee sketch.
They also have those. They have those fancy pretzels. How do you feel about fancy pretzels, like the flavored ones?
What kind of? Well, I think it depends on what flavors are we talking about.
I don't know. I just.
You mean like the Snyder's of Hanover or whatever?
Sure.
The honey mustard.
Yeah.
Chunks.
Yeah. No, not the chunks. I mean, well, I mean, I guess they sometimes do have the pretzel chunks.
We'll edit that part out.
Well,
or not.
no, I mean, we're in the green room. It doesn't like
Yeah,
this
right.
doesn't even make the real
Petrol trunks.
trunks. Well, Bucky's. That would be like Bucky's has got. I mean, you haven't even. I keep forgetting. You've not even experienced the Bucky's yet.
I think there's one in Ohio. I told you that story. The building inspector in Flint has a Bucky's hat.
No,
he drives south. He goes far enough to get to a Bucky's. I think it's in Ohio.
He goes far enough just because he heard how amazing it is. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
So they do like the Parmesan dusted?
Probably. I mean,
Parmesan garlic or whatever.
There's so much stuff in there. It's ridiculous.
I like a pretty salty pretzel.
Yeah.
That's top choice.
So
it's got to be, a nice sourdough and salty.
Yeah, like the big ones that you get.
I like big ones too.
Like at a beer garden or like a soccer game.
Those are usually like a little squishy.
Oh, not so. I'll tell you this. So there is a place here in Austin. That's called Easy Tiger. It's like a beer garden, right? But it's not just a beer garden because they also are a baker. So they have a bakery where they do all the foods and breads and things for their own place. But the bigger part of their business is the bread. They supply all the bread to lots of other restaurants in town. So the bakery part is the real behind the scenes business. The front of house is the beer garden restaurant.
That's cool.
And the point of the story was
right. Crunchy,
amazing pretzels.
Oh,
just like you described.
I do like pretzel with beer
and a spicy mustard.
Oh yeah. Wow, I'm in. Easy.
Yeah.
Have you told me about this place before?
I think I probably have. Well, the Kraken lived right next door to it when it first came out of the creek.
So how many pretzels did you?
Oh, too many.
To take down.
Too many.
Well, I go through these. Yeah, these. What do you call it? Phases. Call it like we talked with Evelyn last week, right? Phases. I'm in a. Oh, sorry, my dog. She's looking a little barfy. Sorry.
Well, she heard you sneezing, and she was like, "Well, I can show you my skills too."
Oh, it's one of those days, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I was on campus all day, then I come home, and then try and do this podcast. Try and do this thing.
It's important.
Acting weird. See? Oh, you can't really see her. All right. Well, I'm gonna monitor the situation, Jamie.
Okay.
We'll just monitor. See, there she is.
Yeah, she's heading to the door.
She's looking. Maybe I should let her out. Why don't you entertain the guests?
I'll entertain the guests while you're, So this is Kurt's room, and that's his dog. And we're taking a mild break here. I don't know. I'm just curious. How do people feel about the background music? Because I'm not sure about it myself.
Well, I will have to let her back in, but
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure there's lots of listeners that are dog owners, but there's like other phases, right? So then, okay, is the dog showing signs of wanting to throw up. You let the dog out. That's good, right? But then does the dog want to eat a bunch of grass?
Right. To help that feeling that they've got.
Which you don't really want.
No, because
then you know something's going to happen.
Well, and it's probably going to happen back inside the house.
Right.
And then it's going to be a real mess.
Yeah. I know, right? People probably, I mean, some people probably have no care to hear any of this right now. But some people are like nodding their head.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, Tink just had her birthday. Tink just had her birthday. And so I'm not a big one for like the crazy dog treat or something like that.
Yeah.
Because she really doesn't care, She's
not counting the days.
Well, no, it's like Tink is never not hungry because that's the pug in her. But and she's funny about like treats anyways. I mean, it's like, like a good bone, like a rawhide or something like that. She could be super about it or care less.
Yeah.
So she got a really nice
dog psychology, man.
She got a really nice rawhide bone. Kind of, just wondering if she was gonna, usually sometimes she looks at it and just says like, yeah, and but it's been eviscerated, and there are 3 smaller chunks that now she is moving around the house and burying inside the house.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The burying. I think it's kind of funny. The instincts.
Oh yeah.
That kick in. Yeah. Whenever we give Ellie a little marrow bones, like beef bones that are, you still have the marrow inside. Yeah, those she goes through a burying phase too, and sticks them behind the couch, trying to dig up the rug, behind furniture, stuff like that. All right, let me go check on the dog. You entertain a little longer. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Start dancing.
So in Tink's world about the burying, it's not about sort of digging up the rug. It's more about like using her nose to like push like pillows on top of things or blankets. It's very, very crafty that way. See, there's dog treats being had. This is all it's really what it was about.
Well,
treats were had.
Start the clock.
Yeah.
We will, as the meteorologist would say, we will continue to monitor the situation on the ground. So this is is as real time as it can get, buddy.
All right.
Oh, all right. Have we tortured the?
I think we've totally tortured listeners with like our pained, like dog stories and like, which we love them. I mean, we'd do anything for them anyways. So that's not it. Are you there? Are you eating pretzels? Are you eating pretzels?
Off camera. No, I'm just trying to take a peek at my dog.
Okay.
I don't know. It's going to be it's going to be one of those nights. So you want to go power through? We'll go to the actual episode.
Yes, we can do the act. I feel sufficiently warmed up because I've had some moments where I've had to like do like a little. I could do a mime thing next time.
Well, the audio podcast, I like it. It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
you gotta match it up to the side of the.
Oh wait.
Screen.
Oh, crap. This way. Which side are you on?
High fives like this. I was thinking about the edge of this box. All right. Let's enough of that.
See,
All right.
that's the moment where like a bunch of people like start tuning in, and they're like, "What the heck are
What
they?"
interpretive dance?
Yeah.
All right. All right. I'll see you in the show. Hey, Jamie. How is it going?
Good. How are you, Kurt?
Dr. Dog Owner over here. That's how I'm doing. You know. Anyway, we were in the green room just talking about you know, pet parenthood and how to watch the signs. Anyway, I'm doing all right. You know,
Good.
it's another week.
You seem
Yeah.
a little bit brighter today than we've recorded a few times here, folks. In the last, we've accelerated our recording timetable, and we even, can I say it? Am I allowed to say it?
I think so. We have permissions.
Yeah, we have permission. So it's not that we're taking the podcast on the road; it's that we're actually going to be guests on another podcast.
We didn't have to get on the road for that one, yeah.
No.
We use our
No.
technology.
Now, still in Austin and in Flint, but it was a really, I will say I was honored to be asked, and for both of us to be able to do it together. It was pretty neat. We've done that before, but this one was certainly special, and unexpected. So, are we allowed to say any more, or is that it? Is that all we want to say?
Well, I thought the permissions extended all the way to say what show we were on, but
Yeah,
we
and
sat
that we're
down.
gonna be the first guests for the next season.
You know what'll happen is then she'll she'll reshuffle the order, and then we'll wind up being not first. But
Right.
I mean,
Uh,
not that I'm assuming. That's like presuming too much, but just
that's
the
that
odds
you
could.
are kind of getting a little negative on me here. Like we started the show super positive. Everybody was right there with us.
Yeah.
But yes, friend of the podcast. She has been on with us, from California herself, in her podcast. Evelyn Lee.
So yeah, practice of architecture, practice disruption. Excuse me, practice disruption. Part of the practice of architecture umbrella.
Yes.
But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. It was interesting conversation. A lot of questions that went in directions that I didn't think they would, and some subjects we never really touched on this podcast or kind of heard on Evelyn's podcast. So
Well, yeah, I think it sparked some really great conversations. I mean, we've known Evelyn for a long time, and I think the three of us had fun kind of reminiscing about how long we've known each other.
you're trying to count the years, try to figure out.
Yeah, I might have been responsible for doing the math because we know how Kurt is with the math. But yeah, no, it was fantastic.
You handle math, I'll handle spelling.
Yeah, thank you. There we go. We divided up the responsibilities. It took us this long to figure it out.
6 seasons, yeah, right.
Yeah, goodness.
Oh well, let's not do any more math, yeah, because I think it's going to be like Evelyn's 8th season.
Yeah,
but we won't. We tease,
Yes.
She started after us, but she's eclipsed us seasonally. But
but it's
definite. It's a season is a season.
Well,
It
and it's
doesn't have to be a year.
Yeah, and it's a podcast that both of us listen to. So, we love her work and what that brand has been able to do in terms of bringing together a bunch of different voices. So, to be asked to be one of the voices for this next season it was an honor. So
yeah, likewise. And then we also worked on a thing for this podcast too. So forthcoming episode 145. So
yeah.
but yeah, here we are in 146 on the live stream. Just getting the hang of getting the intro down, again, you never know when Kurt's on it or not on it, but
Some days it's the buttons. It's just we gotta. I think what I'm gonna do.
they do move the buttons. I kid you not.
I'm gonna like make labels for you, like a cheat sheet guide, and it's gonna just like put arrows to certain keys on your keyboard, and we're gonna go. What do you think? No,
I don't. I will try anything.
you're like Jamie. That's not the way this works.
I was gonna go somewhere like that, but I figured no. You know what?
Just
continuous improvement.
Always you're like just let the guy have his fantasy about the buttons. So
yeah, I love how you're visualizing the workflow. But yeah,
right. But in getting back to the podcast and this current episode 146, I am very curious because you did mention in the lead up from the last episode that there might be some gifts in the mail for me related to coffee, which is very generous of you. Thank you. But in the spirit of that, what's in your cup?
Well, I have had to go pick up some more rootless, so I've got the good old damn fine, the OG, one of the OGs, original coffees from Rootless. So damn fine cup of coffee, like our favorite show, Twin Peaks. Agent Cooper.
Yes.
So that's it's one of it's one of my favorites of theirs. Can't go wrong. So
speaking of Agent Cooper, and I think we can probably arrange this because we've talked about it, but we haven't. I think we need to have Jason back on.
Oh.
And I'm thinking that we probably should do it here. I mean, in the next couple episodes, because Twin Peaks Day is actually almost upon us.
Oh.
So later next month, it is Twin Peaks Day. So I think we put that in the notes. Note to self. So
on the to do, I will. Yeah, and I'll find a little time. Well, I guess before I ask you about the coffee that you're drinking, aside from the forthcoming gifted coffee, have I told you that my vice, my television vice, as of late, has become true crime.
You did mention the true crime.
I mentioned that in front of Danielle on a day where she was like, "Well, you're just basic." She called me basic something, but I'm trying to keep it PG or G rated. I don't know.
Well, you did when you did sort of. I mean, you did mention it to me. That you do have a penchant when you have some extra time and no one's around, that you tend to move over to the true crime podcast, true crime kind of genre. Yeah, documentaries. So, which was a surprise to me. I mean, I will admit, but then you were like, don't tell Danielle. And then then you go and, as you should, you went and told her, but
well, you know how you can't avoid it because the thing will say continue watching.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I only brought that up because I need to find less time for that and more time for Twin Peaks. I gotta finish. I still gotta finish season 2 and
start season 3.
and the movie.
Yeah.
And I
That's what we need to do. We've talked about doing the live
oh
video, like Mystery Science Theater
oh yeah,
3000 of
we could
Twin Peaks
do that somehow.
somehow.
Although the thing is, I got to figure out where it exists
Hmm.
to watch. But so anyway, so that we'll put a pin in that one.
Okay. Okay.
And so then, what's in your coffee cup?
Well, I in the spirit of impulse buys, because sometimes that happens. I it's like when you go to the store. And do you know impulse buy? You understand what I mean by impulse buy? Okay, good. Well, you had this kind of blank. You had this kind of blank look, and yeah, we just talked about pretzels for days. So
For the longest time. Yeah, impulse
silly me,
buys.
silly me. But yes, impulse buy, community coffee. So kind of like maybe this whole New Orleans thing that we were reminiscing about from
Oh yeah.
2015, sort of in my brain. But
Mm.
the bag just sort of shot out and spoke to
Out.
me. But the bag itself it's their special edition king cake coffee.
Oh, well, that's yeah, we're getting close.
Yeah,
Also, calendar
yeah,
wise, king cake.
yeah. So king cake coffee, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of exciting. Like, what's the flavor notes on this guy? And it's the cinnamon. We've talked about cinnamon on the podcast before. With coffee, sort of that chicory flavor sometimes that you get to, and some do it really, really well, and some not so much. But I have to say that they pair their cinnamon in this coffee with sort of like a vanilla flavor, and for a flavored coffee, it's pretty good.
Good. That's good. I'm I'm intrigued. And actually, Jamie's on top of all the, what do you call it, the calendar events, right? You got King, new Mardi Gras coming around the corner, Twin Peaks Day, king cake coffee. I like
Yeah.
it. So yeah, and then our reminiscent flashback to the Young Architects Forum 2014.
14 and 15 we talked about.
But 14 was
15 was beignets, and
15. So 9 years ago.
Yeah.
It was almost a couple weeks away from 9 years. But anyway, you're going to get me all nostalgic again, Jamie. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
let me, before we talk about your sketch.
Not sorry.
Yes. Thanks a lot. I wanted to, I briefly mentioned this, but we've talked about it in the past couple of weeks on the previous episodes, but I finally got a moment away from true crime, pretzels, and grading homework. I was able to scan the sketches that my students have been creating.
Ooh, it's like a treat for Jamie. This
So
this is like a special prize.
I'm gonna do like a broad, little wide screen shot here. So for those not expecting their sketch to be shown on the podcast, because some of them actually do watch and listen. But this was from 2 weeks ago, and I had them sketch Richard Serra's torqued ellipses, an image of one of his sculptures. I think it's actually from their installation at the Dia Beacon in New York, right? And so there's a window with some light, and some of these are a little upside down, so apologies for the
That's on the scanner, not on the student.
You're right. Yeah, it's the user error in the scanning side of things. And the course I'm teaching, if I haven't mentioned it before, I can't remember. Acoustics, Electrical, and Illumination Systems is a lecture course in the mornings, and I've been doing this sketching thing on Wednesdays, the second day of the the week, or the second session of the week for this class. just to get their brains working a little bit, and hand-eye, getting their getting engaged with something a little more analog when they're in front of computers so much, and using the sketch, and also relating it to the content of the class. So we've been talking about daylight at the moment, up to this part. So here you go. These are pretty. I'm pleasantly surprised and impressed with the variety of the sketched examples. What do you
And
think?
and this is a 10-minute sketch, you said, or
Oh, I haven't put a timer on them necessarily, but basically there's 55 students. It's a pretty big class.
okay,
So I give them the prompt, and then I start going through the attendance. So I start, checking names off. And so, that takes about 5 or 10 minutes or so. And then I let them work a little bit on it while I'm kind of getting
eating pretzels.
eat some pretzels, get the rest of the content together for the class. And then I basically wait for when the class is over, then they come bring it down, but they're not, they kind of, some of them will doodle a little longer, but they pretty much take about 10 or 15 minutes with it. So
So you're hoping that they're taking notes and listening to your lecture while you've given them the opportunity to sketch. What do you think I would be doing in that class during that time?
making more sketches.
Probably. Yeah. You would have like opened the floodgates, and Jamie just like continues to no, I would listen. I'd listen to your lecture. I'm teasing. But no, this is like a treat. Thank you for sharing this. I'm excited. I love, grids of drawings like this, and seeing it, where everybody this reminds me of, Archinktober, where you've got, a prompt that everybody's kind of working from the same prompt, and everybody has a different vantage point. And even to what you were describing, with Sarah's work, it's these sort of sculptures are intended to be inhabited to a certain degree, and I think it's a great way for you to kind of get at the subject matter of your course, sort of daylighting, sort of lighting an object, and how it sort of changes that object. And you can sort of see how each student is trying to figure out. It's like the idea of almost like a still life. So you're given, you're in that art class, and you've got sort of strange objects sitting on a table that you might not have ever arranged yourself that way. Your teacher has arranged it that way. So, in your case, you're sort of creating this prompt for them and arranging, their subject matter. But then each of them is able to kind of take it and run with it. And that's always sort of the beauty for me is, and what's crazy is like the ones like in the very middle there, ironically, that are both, someone getting out that blue pen, and, that's bold. I love it. I love it. I love it. Someone sketching with a blue, note-taking pen, you know, but caution, do not be that person who picks up the red pen and tries to do sketches, because that's just wrong. There's something.
It's psychological. It's too strongly associated with correcting.
Yeah, there's something not quite right, when you kind of go that route. But the blue pen, and even amongst people who do a lot of sketching, you will see that's sort of like almost like a, not like a, there's a level of admiration for those who sketch well with like not poor in the sense that it's like bad like the sketch, but like a poor implement like that, where like that implement is intended for you to take notes, to write down a bunch of stuff. It's a cheap blue pen, and they're disposable in a sense, but to pick that up and do a sketch with it, is bold in a good way, in the absolute best way.
Right. Yes. Use
So
the tool that you have, that that's available on you.
Yeah, and
Was
don't
the
be
best
afraid.
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that both of those two sketches, just looking at them here on the screen, both students, though using the blue pen, approach their sketches absolutely differently
Mm-hmm.
for the same prompt.
And I
And
forgot the one extra challenge was to do it in contour line. At least start it in contour before they started hatching. But because it was basically like a reboot of when I was a student, and we actually at the time in LA at the Geffen Contemporary there were some torqued ellipses, and I remember distinctly being challenged to do the sketches that we were all there in the space, and do it with contour lines. And so I'm sure if I dug hard enough I could find that sketchbook. But anyway, so I kind of rehashed a familiar theme from our early days as a because it's an evergreen kind of topic or question, right? So
right. Well, I mean,
try and do it in contour line.
and for those in Texas, I mean, there's some great Sarah work, both in Dallas. There's a good piece in Dallas at the Nasher, and then there's one, Nasher Sculpture Garden by Renzo Piano, and then there's also a piece by Sarah at the Fort Worth Contemporary, or what's the official name? The Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth,
next to the Kimball.
Next to the Kimball by Tadawanda.
Mm-hmm.
So, and both are very, interestingly enough, both very, very different works. But yeah, I think that's a great exercise. I mean, that's a challenge because it is about the form. It is about the contour. It is trying to strike the idea of how do you render that quickly and get it right scale wise, and also sort of the vantage point of you as the viewer, those sort of torqued forms. But then once you've got it, and it can be, you can almost like put pencil down and say, got it. I've got that torqued form. But to then decide to add in the shade, add in the shadow, realize there's a lot more nuance to the object that you're seeing that's not in the detail of the form itself, but it's about how the light is playing on the surface of that object. That's a fun exercise. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your feedback, and I will continue to use that class after class to keep the energy up and encourage them. I think I'm getting some general positive feedback from it, so I think we're on the right track still. I did, however, forget. I mentioned this to you before. I've been trying to supply the paper, because I want it to be pretty uniform so that the grid like kind of comes together nice, and then I can scan them a little easier. And then lower the, what do they call that? Lower the friction, right? For them, the barrier of entry. And I forgot the paper this morning. Guess
Foiled.
what?
Foiled.
Guess
Yeah.
what? Did the students have any paper of their own? No. Oh well, we try. So anyway, let's maybe it could be fun in conversation to compare to your recent sketch. How some of these what conventions, I suppose, sketching conventions, drawing methods, conventions, maybe you sort of reflect back and forth. And for any of my students that are listening or watching, this is where the idea came from.
Well, I mean, I I like the pairing of this sketch today with the surprise of being able to see your students' work, because this sketch is about me musing about a time when I was in school, and I've talked about it a little bit. Is going to Italy the first time, for me as a student, um, was as formative an experience as one can have, in a journey, for something that I've continued to do, and find myself still doing. So it's, this sketch is of a place that I got to spend almost 4 months of my life, the first time around. I was fortunate to be able to go back as a grad assistant and teach. So I got to do it a second time. But the first time, this was the center of town. This was the piazza in the center of the city, and it was a walled Tuscan hill town that had this loggia, in that piazza at the very very center, of the city, kind of on one of the higher levels. Um, but it had a unique feature in it, which all of us sort of marveled at, because we were learning a lot of the tectonics and the geometries of and the vocabulary for all of these features that we were seeing architecturally. And this particular loggia, so a loggia, for those who are trying to, kind of equate the term to something they know and maybe don't, have that architecture vocabulary, think of it like an arcade. So you have, a extension of the building where, there is a roof over it, supported by columns, typically arched entryways, and, but it's not, completely transparent all the way through. So there is sort of a wall. It's usually attached to a building. Sometimes they're somewhat freestanding, but that's sort of very very traditional loggia, loggia.
Oh, spelling.
Yeah, I know spelling. Jamie's pulling it all out tonight.
Nailed it, math and spelling.
And in Italy, one of the best locations to see how the prevalence of that, in an urban environment. I mean, think about, instead of having a series of canopies over sidewalks in your small downtown or your urban core of wherever you live, covering the sidewalk and making that public space, that public domain, really energetic, but also, protected in a sense from the elements and sun, rain, whatever. Arcades or loggias, sort of serve a similar function. The arcades are typically seen as sort of a longer extension along the building. Bologna, or Venice, if people have been to Venice or seen images of Venice, there's quite a large, series of arcades, especially in Piazza San Marco, the main piazza in Venice, surrounded on all sides effectively by arcades. But in going back to the sketch, in this particular example, it's a pretty small little loggia, but it has windows on the back that mimic, the columns and the archway that are on the front side, that are very traditional form. But on the back, there's these sort of punched openings, through it. But then there's a, kind of a level, almost a guardrail type level of, seating, and unprotected. So, I mean, you could totally fall out the backside of this thing, but it was a beautiful place to, and it was also right next to the post office. So, if you were, and there was a market up there as well. So there was, if you could go up there and buy your stamps and, get a coffee or, get a snack and, oftentimes a lot of us would go up there and kind of read our mail or pen a letter home or pen a postcard home or something like that. And it was just this picturesque vantage point, to kind of to view the valley that this sort of hill town, lived in, or was settled in, but then also sort of aspects of the little vignettes of the city. So it was immediately recognizable for me. It's one that it's a thing that I've sketched many a time, and in this particular case, I actually sketched it from memory. So
Oh, really? Oh, that was going to be one of my questions. So, um, yeah, we've talked about this scene, or um, you know s- uh, part of Italy that you've been to, through those two visits. And now, is that in the distance, the tower, is that um, ca- part of the Castel Vecchio, or no? Am I getting my
no, you're mixing
locations
it.
wrong?
Yeah, you're mixing
Yeah,
up the cities. So no, this
my bad.
is yeah, this is the city that our Texas A&M's program was centered in. So we were um, on the train line in between Florence and Rome,
Okay,
in a city near Arezzo.
got it.
Um,
Yep.
and the town we were staying in was Castiglione Fiorentino, so the little Florentine castle, so a walled city. But this tower that you're seeing in through the vignette of the window is um, part of a church. Um,
Okay.
but but it's one, there's, even with these walled cities, is that there's these elements that sort of start to bridge inside and outside the wall. And from this vantage point, you're actually really close to one side of the wall city. Kind of, it's an irregular object because it's built on a mountain. It's built
Mhm.
on this in the terrain itself. So this vantage point also gives you this wonderful view of all the olive orchards, and the olive fields that were out that direction.
Well, it's a fantastic little sketch, and I was curious about if it was from a photograph, or um, internet, you know, something, advertisement or search, or something that popped up that sort of inspired it. But pulling it from memory is another great example of y- you know thinking through the idea of a space, and having been places. Is I mean, that's why you and I are always encouraging students and young designers to go visit places, right? Not just see it on the internet or something like that, because then it ties a stronger connection, I think, to the brain, to the memory. And then if you wanted to draw from it for design sensibility. But yeah, it's nice. There's these really subtle hints at edges, not always drawn with a hard line, but rendering with this the sort of play of light and shadow that then result in an edge formed between, say, the figure and ground, or the the area that's sketched, and then the area of the page that you leave blank to create the contrast, and then
Well,
even foreground to background.
and leaving, like you're saying, like leaving some parts of it blank to kind of let the viewer's mind's eye fill in the blanks. I think that's that restraint, um, that takes time sometimes to develop, um, and develop a way that it's sort of a language of how you sketch. Um, but I think it allows the artwork itself to have a dialogue with the people who are potentially enjoying it. Um, and I love the way that you sort of talk about the suggestion of a form and suggestion of a line, because that's something that doing a sketch like this, especially one from memory, is I don't have all the details absolutely correct. It's my memory of being in this place, and a lot of it is texture and light and framed views and knowing what's outside that window that isn't really a window. And knowing that I've sat on that space and leaned up against that wall and trying to draw it in a way that I can feel it. And I think that that's, for me, that's the success, is that I look at it and go, yep, I know exactly where I am. And if you put a photo up next to it, would it be close? Probably. Would it be a little bit off? I'm absolutely sure.
Sure. Right.
But for me, I can, like you said, as a designer, use that concept of knowing that space to maybe influence something else that I'm working on.
And another aspect of it too is the freedom to know to use, say, certain patterning or texture, sketch method, right? So in this case, the hills are in these, light vertical lines, and the sky is just blank, right? And then a lot of other sketches, you do a version of a parallel lines for sky, and then the ground plane, or um, the earth, the terrestrial part of the sketch has some other um, rendered technique. And so I hope that the fact that you're there's not necessarily a strict rule on vertical line is always sky or something like that. And I don't know if you even think about this as much, but it's me, the observer, just comparing sketches over time, uh, and then just thinking about the process of drawing on my own, just not necessarily having a rule set, right? I mean, some people may find a harmony, I guess, in having some constraint or rule sets, but I guess personally, I don't I don't think that hard about it. So,
Well, we've talked about it before.
good.
Is it like a like a not a mantra necessarily for myself, but it's like you have to kind of know the drawing rules, enough of them, to then feel comfortable breaking them.
Right.
And so I think you have to do. I mean, it's not that anything goes. It's that there is some thinking involved in it, even if you are relying on your instincts. I mean, the thing that I would say, even with this, and we haven't necessarily talked this way about a sketch, recently, is a critique I would have of looking at my own work in this case is I don't set up where the ground plane is. This is all about the window, and it's sort of pushing through the page. And I think to achieve that, it was really almost essential for me in my head when I was sort of drawing this, that I didn't establish the ground plane. I didn't establish where these archways were. Is there a roof over this space? You have you don't have anything in the foreground that sets up the scale. The only sort of thing that's really giving you a sense of scale to this is that there's this tower, and it's in the distance, and you can kind of assume, how big that tower is relative to the things that you're seeing in the foreground. So there is some, I think, natural critique to the drawing as well, but I think just a different, and I think that that's okay. I think you're allowed to critique. You're going to be your own worst critic and maybe your best critic. So
Right. Well, one other thing too, and I think, I'll be ready after this to say goodbye to the folks, but is returning back to Christopher Alexander's pattern language book and his concepts of patterns, as far as they are varying in scale from urban to individual element of a building. And so one of them is, I think it's called like window bench. I'm not going to remember the number, right? Or window seat or something like that. And this sketch, even in its vignette style, right? So like you just said, it's not grounded per se with, where the floor line or the ceiling line, it's about this window moment, right? And the patterns to me really are individual moments that are tied to memory of spaces, that which, if you can cobble together 2, 3, or 4 moments as elements of a design of a building, I think, without over analyzing Alexander's book, the idea, I think, is in uh, rendering or creating spaces, buildings that have these moments coming up or tied together, which then connect to memories of other spaces and things like that become comfortable and familiar, and so then you associate sort of a positive feeling of the space reacting to a newly designed space that is drawn from these various moments. So I think I did overcomplicate it, even though I was saying I was. Did you understand
No,
where I was going?
I didn't expect you to talk. I'm glad you did. I didn't expect you to tie it to that, but I think when you said sort of the window seat, and and not in the drawing, not overcomplicating the concept of the window seat, right? And that memory and the way it's rendered allows for that genuineness that you're sort of describing, that you can hold on to, as a designer, and to a place and to a memory, but also be able to utilize the feelings or thoughts that evokes in future works. Tying you to those other moments that Alexander sort of or as a designer, it's like simply put, you only have 3 moves you can make in a design.
Right.
Everything else is going to be just sort of background, and if window and vantage point and this sort of vignette moment is super critical, like you realize as a designer that this is a moment that's critical, and you're like, well, what inspiration can I draw upon, to achieve that? A sketch like this, it's not that you're going to create a loggia with a window in the back, but you've been in that space before, and then known what, where your imagination can go. And so I think that's a great, window seat, Christopher Alexander, sitting there with a bunch of pretzels, writing a postcard. It was just, there's beauty in that, man. That's poetry.
Poetry. Well, on that note, I think we've captured the essence of the poem. And no, it's really. I think some of the best sketches are seemingly, or simple, but not. There's a lot in that sketch, but at first glance it looks like a vignette, in the sense that it's a small space, with sort of a singular focus. But anyway, there's always some depth in the sketches. So anyway, that's a great sketch.
Thank you.